covering everything that you need to know in talent experience.
People applying for new positions is like the cherry on top.
With new technology to attract talent.
Recruiters always know their best talent.
The AI just learned to use that information.
Inclusion efforts across the organization.
Tell me what it's like to work through associate story.
Interviews with leaders in the industry. Talk about what's new in HR tech. What are the hot topics? We're here every week, folks. Weekly look at the latest and greatest topics in HR. Welcome back, everyone, to Talent Experience Live. As I like to say, this is the GOAT. This is the greatest show on the internet. You are hard-pressed to find a better show on the internet at 12 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Place to be every single week if you are a recruiter, a sourcer, a talent marketer, or a talent manager. And if you're just joining us, as I mentioned, we go live every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook. Be sure to like, subscribe. Get notified if you're on YouTube. Click the bell. We want to make sure you get notified so that you never miss an awesome episode. You never miss a beat. We love being here, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our amazing audience and our amazing guests joining us as well. I'm your host, Tom Tate, joining you today. Talent Experience Live is proudly brought to you by the team here at Phenom. If you're not familiar with Phenom, I'll give you the quick rundown. Our purpose is to help 1 billion people find the right job. That's not a typo. I did not misspeak. It is a true billion. We are well on our way, and we can't do it without our amazing community. Our talent experience platform helps candidates find the right fit faster. It helps employees evolve in their current role and beyond. Incredibly critical, especially because the great resignation isn't going anywhere. It helps recruiters achieve some of that next level productivity and efficiency, and it helps managers build better teams with data, analytics, and automation. All of this is powered by super slick artificial intelligence and machine learning. Head on over to phenom.com and learn more if you're interested. Want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what you do. It's always awesome to understand kind of what you do. And that way you can connect with like-minded folks in the industry, talk with each other. This is a great opportunity to talk with each other. I want to hit you with a quick icebreaker question. We typically do this. I don't think we did it last week. So last weekend here in the United States, it was a long weekend. I believe our colleagues in Europe also had a bit of vacation time as well. I'm curious, did you do anything awesome this past weekend? Did you do anything awesome, exciting, long weekend, start of the summer? Let me know in the comments if you had anything exciting happen, or maybe you didn't have anything exciting happen and you had kind of a low-key weekend, and that is exactly what you needed. Me personally, I had a bit of a low-key weekend, and honestly, that's exactly what I needed. So shout out in the chat. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and if you did anything awesome this past weekend. While we're checking in on the chat, I just want to also give a shout out to the team here at Phenom. We just recently put out our 2022 State of CX reports. Now, this thing is massive. It is massive, and it looks at how some of the top organizations are ranking. You know, how are they doing with their candidate experience? Are they leveraging AI? Are they leveraging personalization? How is their search? Is their search fully functional and helping people find the right fit faster? We dug into so many different areas, and we put together an amazing report. So head on over to phenom.com. You'll see a banner. You'll be able to check out the resources and check out this report. We really want you to see it because we want you to see how companies are performing and doing really well. And if your organization is looking to improve, we have a lot of actionable tips and tactics on how you can do that as well. So check that out for sure. So once again, if you tuned in last week, we have a different kind of show this episode. We're doing a bit of a host swap. We're doing a host swap with fellow content creators, Bo and Luke from the Bo and Luke Show. Now, Luke and I met a few months ago. We had a quick Zoom call, and Luke and I, he's been a friend of the show. He's been on a bunch of episodes, dating all the way back to 2020. He is on the sales team here at Phenom. Amazing guy. We had a Zoom call, and a couple months ago, he shared with me just a very heavy statistic. He shared with me that there are, on average, 22 veteran suicides a day here in the United States. That's every day. And there's some out there who even speculate that we're undercounting that number. So you can see, just celebrating Memorial Day weekend, I'm repping my stripes today. You know, this is an important topic. Luke and I teamed up with his partner, Bo, and we discussed what can we do about it? We have to do something about this. Our purpose at Phenom, as I mentioned, is to help 8 billion people find the right job. And that is inclusive of all people, right? And we wanted to explore how we, as HR professionals, as talent acquisition professionals, as friends, as loved ones, how can we do our parts? What can we do? What can we offer to help out with this, right? And continue to make an impact here. We have to do something. That was the conversation that Bo and Luke and I had. So we kicked off this content series last week. We had an awesome interview with Mike Barger. If you want to check that out, head on over to phenom.com. It'll be in the archives. He is the executive director of strategy and academic innovation at the Stephen M. Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. He's got a cool background. He's the co-founder of JetBlue, former U.S. Navy Top Gun pilot and chief instructor. He was amazing. He broke down with Bo and Luke actionable tips for job seekers and employees to help veterans find the right job. And we're going to continue that conversation today. Today, we are going to continue that with an amazing interview with Lisa Jaster. Now, Lisa is an Army Lieutenant Colonel. She was the first female Army Reserve officer to become Ranger qualified. Again, amazing individual. Apparently, she has an amazing Instagram feed that I just started following as well. So I'm excited to keep tabs on her. Super motivational. She does a lot of speaking on leadership topics. And I believe she's also working on a book. You'll hear a little bit about that as well, too. So without any further ado, I am very excited to roll this interview with Lisa Jaster and our good friends, Bo and Luke.
Bo and Luke Nation, welcome to another episode of the Bo and Luke Show. We're delighted today. We have a return guest, one of the coolest people we've ever met. We have Lisa Jaster, who, if you don't remember, you should know. She was in the first graduating class of some of the first female Army Rangers ever. So could kill me with her pinky. I follow her on Instagram and she's lifting way more weight than I could ever aspire to. It's hardcore. It's awesome. But why we brought her back on the show today was to talk about her experience I shouldn't even say post-military because you're still in the Army Reserve, so you're still contributing. But right now, Lisa is also a partner and senior consultant at the Talent War Group. And what they do is they do management consulting and executive search, focused on leadership development and how military service members plug into the economy after their service. So for the topics that we're talking about this month, there couldn't be anybody better to join the podcast. So Lisa, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Luke. Really appreciate being here.
Oh my gosh, of course. So to set the stage, obviously I'm wearing a shirt if people can't see it, if you're driving in the car or whatever. What we're talking about this month is the horrible statistic of 22 veteran suicides per day, which is absolutely awful. As a society, we can do better. These folks are fighting for our freedom and a lot of the things that we take for granted. And where we really wanted to help and talk about this issue so that more people were aware of it is that a lot of these issues really come from the transition of transitioning out of the service into the civilian world and the problems that can happen with that. And I mean, Lisa, you're living this day to day. What are you seeing in the industry right now? And where we'd like the conversation to go is, as individuals and companies, what can we do better to solve this problem?
I'm going to kind of start with where you ended, which is what we, as former military, specifically in companies, can do better. And that is really understanding what that military experience brings. So our non-military counterparts don't understand our lingo and a lot of times get real frustrated. I remember when I first joined the workforce, leaving active duty into Shell Oil Company, people kept telling me, hey, this isn't the military anymore. And it's like, that's right. You hired me because you wanted this. You wanted more direct leadership. You wanted I have the ability to sit and communicate in a different fashion with multiple demographics because that was my only experience. And so we bring, as veterans, we bring this, it's not even experience, it's almost an empathy to a vast and very diverse community that someone who's grown up, went to college, got hired on, and worked in the same community their whole life couldn't possibly understand unless your passport's really punched. But I just handed off the guidon for a battalion, almost 1,300 people in my unit. And I had people from 5 different African nations, from European nations that were citizens in those countries. And we just, as military, have a lot of exposure. And so when hiring professionals look at a military resume, they sit there and say, what can you bring? What experience do you have? But they forget those bigger attributes, which is the empathy and understanding that you get from living in close quarters with people from completely diverse backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Can I add to that real quick? Because I think that is fascinating, Luke. Because I think a lot of people don't know this, like what Lisa just said about the military and the exposure that you had, aside from the leadership acumen that you build and so forth, but from a diverse perspective. When I got to Germany and was deploying to Iraq, I had a soldier that was Moroccan, I had a Jordanian, I had 2 from South Korea, I had 1 from Germany, and that was all their citizenship, serving in the United States Army for our country, deploying to fight for our country. And I mean, you have all of that, wow, diverse culture right there that exposes very young leaders to at an early age. I thought it was amazing. Yeah. So let's take it away, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Bo. And what's interesting about it is companies, I feel like they know this is going to be good for their business. Everybody knows this. I have not come across anybody that says, no, we don't want to hire veterans and the reason why is because they can't find any good reason to back it up, because that's just insane. Right. What I find is that they don't know how to make those accommodations for folks, right? To make it successful. And companies have gotten really good at making accommodations for folks. I'm just going to call it out for, folks with disabilities, which is completely the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, I feel like our veterans have superpowers that the civilians might not have, but companies might need to make those accommodations in order to make that a little bit more seamless of a transition. Lisa, what are you seeing that companies can focus on that's easy to do from a beginner standpoint, but can make a giant impact?
Sponsorship programs.
Tell me more.
In active duty Army, I loved it. And we're even starting to do it more in the reserve, which is where I serve today. But you get to a new unit, you get to a new location, you get someone who is kind of like you. I'm a mom who's married with 2 kids and a Christian. So maybe I'll get assigned to somebody who's maybe not even in my unit, who's also a parent with children and goes to a certain church. And that person will say, hey, these are the good churches. These are the good schools. These are the good playgrounds. Here's after school care and camps, and helps you get integrated into the new community. Well, when we get off active duty, whether we're relocating or not, and you start in a new business, yes, our civilian jobs usually don't care about our personal life quite as much as the Army did, or Navy, Marine Corps, etc. But they do need to integrate us. And part of that is set somebody aside to say, hey, here's the lunchroom. Let me make sure that you're not eating at your desk on day 1. Let me make sure if you want to work out, you know that we have a gym facility. I remember, again, when I first started at Shell, I was there for 12 years. It was probably 3 years in, even though I'd been to the benefits brief, where I really understood, I could get reimbursed for this, or this is the best hospital that takes our insurance. And that would have been great to know when I was pregnant with our first child. And those are all things that it's very easy to do by just matching name for name somebody who's got a similar life story.
Absolutely. I could totally see that. What do you see as, and I want to bring it back to the problems that we see transitioning into the civilian world. And Bo, feel free to jump on this too, because you've both done it successfully. On the flip side of that, I'm positive people where it's been a real struggle for them. what advice do you have to veterans and companies alike? Like tips on how to make the relationship work or be successful, or resources that can help them out.
So resources to make the transition smoother.
Yeah, and it's so open because I feel like it's a tough question to ask, because I feel like a lot of people are in the same boat I'm in, where they almost don't even know where to start. And I get back to that, like the first little bit of action that you take is going to make a big difference because you're doing something. Where do folks start on just being more mindful of this? Things to watch out for? I mean, it's just the most open-ended question you cannot possibly imagine.
You know, the military's got our structure, you know, your squads, your platoons, your companies, and you always know where you fit. You can Google a duty description for every job you're going to have in the military. But whether it was with Shell or M&S Engineering or Talent War Group or any organization I've worked for, there's no duty description. There's no standard of this is my left and right limits. And I think that's one of the joys and benefits of corporate America is there is a lot more leeway. You can create a career path for yourself, but on day one, point me in a direction so that I can feel like I'm adding value immediately. I don't know. What do you think, Bo?
Yeah, no, I think this is one of those questions where you have the potential to open up a whole can of worms, because even from my perspective, every service has a transition program while you're still on active duty, and you're supposed to have this process. Used to be the Army Career and Alumni Program, then it turned into Soldier for Life, or TAP. Now it's Soldier for Life. They give them these great big names, and there's processes that you go through, or you're supposed to go through before you transition. But then there are, I forget the last count. There are several thousand, and this is something we got into, Luke, with Colonel Cohen, one of my former commanders, who's running the Charlie Mike channel, who's all about transition. There's thousands of organizations that have been stood up, mostly by former military members, high-ranking officers, to try and help people with the transition. Well, then you get in kind of like information overload. So if you're a transitioning service member, kind of go into your question, Luke, who do you listen to? Who do you go to? Who's going to actually give me the right advice for what I want to do, right? Not just in general. You know, I know people, if you go to LinkedIn, you're going to see a lot of LinkedIn experts who tell you how to use LinkedIn, especially if you're a former service member, and what your duty titles should be and who you are and who you aren't. And then when you dig into them, it's like, well, you transitioned and you just became a LinkedIn expert is what you did, right? So sifting through, I think this is the problem. This is the challenge. Sifting through all of those layers to get to whether it's a person, like, you know, I love the idea of sponsorship, somebody, a mentor who can actually help you so you have a solid source of information, I think is super important. And I would add, and Lisa, I'd love for you to talk to us about it, because you are still in the reserve component, having just come out of battalion command. So you're receiving soldiers who come out of active duty and then go into the reserve unit. So hopefully you had some of those. But you also have current reservists serving who are working civilian jobs, them, their spouses, and I'm sure at times it's challenging for them as well. So I can only imagine the number of stories you might have thinking about, you know, how service members are dealing with their corporate jobs, how they finding new jobs, you know, and how obviously they're your troops. It matters how they're handling their own corporate life outside of the military.
You know, and I mentioned earlier how complicated it is for corporate America to understand the talents, skill sets, and attributes that veterans bring to the organization. It's also hard, especially for my junior soldiers who are kind of 1 foot on either side of this bridge. There's civilians 5 days a week and military 2 days a month, or whatever it looks like. And the one thing I've found as a leader that's been the most beneficial is to bring those attributes out in casual conversation. It takes a lot of energy. Like I said, I had 1,280 soldiers. But you got to walk around. And I'd talk to a soldier and they're like, well, I don't bring anything special to the fight. I just, I train being a carpenter 1 week in a month. And I said, what do you do in your civilian job? And this kid tells me, and really he's a kid, he's 19, 20 years old. He's like, I deliver the mail. I'm a postman. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. That is a great skill set. And he looks at me, deer in the headlights, completely shocked. I said, hey, I need you to move this lumber from this location to our project site. How are you going to do it? He starts talking about checking weather apps, checking roads, checking bridge and wire heights for trucks. And he's talking about all these things. And I looked at the rest of the platoon, a 37-person platoon, and jaws are dropping because all of them were like, I wonder how much I can carry at a time. Like completely meathead responses. And here this guy was, well, I just deliver mail. No, you're a logistics specialist. And once he was able to hear that, he was also able to kind of advocate for himself in his civilian job as well as his military career.
Right. Yeah, that's powerful.
So you just tapped into something so special, and that's where it really comes into translating those skills and seeing where it fits in to the civilian world. And I love how you worded that. You're like, no, you're not a mail delivery person. You do logistics, which you're 100% right. That's exactly what it is. And that's a very special job. Let me ask this, and this might not be a thing. They might have training for it in the military, but do companies need to help veterans through the interview process with a little more care than they might for civilian folks? So let me run this by you. So Bo is 100% going to be a better candidate than me for any job. I mean, he's far and above, like just a better man and human, right? But I've interviewed a bunch more times. That could be because I just didn't even get jobs in the past, but I've got that corporate interview down pat. I've seen the pitch before. Do they have programs like that in the military that prepare you for it? Or is that something that companies really need to be mindful of to say, you know what, this isn't something that they might have seen before or might not be practiced at?
Bo mentioned this series of name changes for the transition program, and there is a process for interviewing and learning how to interview. The problem is you have people who have rarely stepped outside of the federal workforce leading that interview process. I think one of the best things we can do is, as companies recruiting, we can make sure that we have a veteran in the room who speaks military. That's one way to help to make sure that we're really drawing the proper attributes from each employee. And then on the flip side, if we're looking at senior grade officers, I mean, I'm a lieutenant colonel. Granted, I have a lot of civilian experience as well. But after 20 years in the Army, you should be of a grade high enough that you can explain it too. So that's also part of the interview process. If you're a junior individual, and I literally was mentoring this morning a lieutenant junior grade in the Navy about how to transition, and he was asking a lot of questions. For him, he needs to learn how to translate his service. But for somebody like me, or somebody who gets out as a colonel or a sergeant major, if they're interviewing for one of my organizations that we're recruiting for, and you can't present what you do, that's actually a limiting factor as well. Because 20 years in, you should have at least told your mom what you did in words that she could understand.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I agree.
Go ahead, Bo.
I would add to that. I agree with 100%. I think it's also important for companies, HR departments, if you have veteran recruiting programs, do your best as well to educate your recruiters who are those frontline hiring people in the process of reviewing resumes, getting jobs posted, that you're somewhat educated so that you don't just simply dismiss somebody because you don't know what a commander is and they use that on their resume, or a platoon,
right,
or I led a squad, right? Like if you have no idea some really basic terms, you could be missing out on a labor market in a time when the labor market is so tight and there's such a gap it might be beneficial to get educated yourself.
I think another critical point on both sides of the interview is, what are we looking for? So I recently interviewed someone who, I didn't need somebody who wanted to excel and climb the corporate ladder. I needed somebody who was willing to take out the trash today, tomorrow, 5 years from now. I wasn't looking for an intrinsically motivated person. I was looking for someone, I need somebody to do some of the grunt work as well. And there are plenty of people out there who want to do that. And for whatever reason, we get in an interview room and it seems like, hey, we got to ask 5-year and 10-year plans. And if somebody doesn't want to progress, well, they're lazy. They're not lazy. They're just looking for a happy place. I had a master sergeant who retired after 26 years. And what he said to me was, I need a job to supplement my retirement so I can have the quality of life I want. So I want to make 40 grand a year, no more, no less. What can I do? And I thought, this is great, because we need everybody from the lowest to the highest level personnel.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people like that. I think that's a great point. And if you don't have that thought pattern, you might be like, well, how come that person why don't they want to move up? That's a retired colonel. Nope.
Right.
He or she just likes coming to work every day and working in their cubicle. And I don't want to get promoted. I don't want to lead anybody. I just want to do this for the next 15, 20 years, whatever it is. Right. I think that's super important.
Yes.
Absolutely. For Lisa, for talent acquisition professionals, so VPs of TA, their team, who's doing the hiring at all these companies, what can they do to develop a relationship with their local military community? Because I think there's just a little, I don't want to say apprehension, but nervousness. Like, to a lot of civilians, the military world is kind of just like a walled off garden, and they don't really know where to start. Are there places they can connect with, and where should they start at square one if you say, you know what, I want to start hiring veterans?
So I'm not a meathead. I'm an academic with a fitness addiction. So I'm going to plug an organization that I'm on the board of directors or the board of advisors for, and that's Team Red, White, and Blue. Every major city in the US and a lot of cities overseas in Korea, Germany, other places, Japan, where the military is heavily located, has these Team Red, White, and Blue organizations. And they're not for veterans. It's for veterans and people who support the military community. And we go on bike rides and we do races, and sometimes we don't even get together as a group. I think I've seen the people in my chapter once or twice in the 3 years I've lived here, but I'll go to a race, wear a Team Red, White, and Blue shirt. I'll see other people with Team Red, White, and Blue shirts, and I'll talk to them. And it's a very easy and welcoming group that says, hey, if you're not against the military, come over and talk to me. And it's not all about drinking and shooting and all those things that intimidate people who don't have service. It's about working out and community. And most of us are not super fit, and most of us are just barely finishing that half marathon under the time limit. But we want to hang out together because we want that sense of community. So I'd say one of the easiest places to go is to find an organization like Team Red, White, and Blue in your community and get to know the veteran community. I really think that's the best way to do it, because there's no way to just walk up to somebody and say, hey, you are wearing combat boots at the airport, so you must be a veteran. Let me buy you a beer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sign up for this. I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, it's awesome. I love it.
So
For the shirts are very recognizable. Saw a guy in the gym here in Florida just the other day, and you're right. It does just that exact thing. If you know what it is, you can spark a conversation like that, right? Yep.
So listeners, this is team, TEAM, RWB.org. If you're interested in, and the logo is really good, Bo. You're not kidding.
It is. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I've debated a tattoo. I won't lie.
That would be awesome.
It would.
Do you have tattoos, Lisa? You have to have tattoos.
I do have tattoos. I started at West Point, and then after every deployment, they kind of grew. And then my kids were like, hey, when do we get our names? So they picked their tattoos and their names. After my last deployment, each of them took a side of my torso, and so it's growing. I'm trying to hold it off, the addiction, but it is growing.
Yeah, good word,
Oh
addiction.
my gosh.
Yep.
That is cool.
Lisa,
Well,
what
this is
kind
good.
of
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, it is. No, I was going to say, what kind of advice would you give to transitioning service members and companies that have vet programs for those individuals that do not have the direct match or even remotely indirect match to job sets like a tank commander or an infantry scout? You name it. Maybe you're an NBC type of person for nuclear, biological, chemical warfare, right? That you don't have your civilian counterpart to, but they still have valuable skills. What kind of advice do you give to them?
You know, Bo, I can't say it enough. You have to use a firm. Like it, I grew up in a small town, and you grew up to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, an engineer, or join the military. Like that's all I knew about. And so to have skills, I remember my husband, he got off active duty. He was an infantryman. And he's like, okay, what can I do after 2 combat deployments as an infantry Marine officer?
Yeah.
I'll be a financial advisor. Sure, because that's what my best friend is doing. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's worked out wonderfully for us. He owns his own financial advising firm, but, you know, he kind of fell upon that because of friends. Well, if you don't have those friendships, using a recruiter is really critical, because you have to have somebody in your life, like I did with my postmaster. Like you have to be able to translate those skills. And there's a ton of skills that aren't just leadership. And you can get out of the Army as a veteran as an E4, and you know you can't proclaim a whole lot of leadership. It doesn't come out on your resume, even though you've done it.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to say, well, as a tanker, I have an aptitude for being a mechanic. Like I can tinker. You cannot be a tanker and not be a tinkerer. I mean, it's just, they go hand in hand, right? I have really good ability of working in close quarters with a diverse group of people. Very, very, very honestly, a tanker attribute.
Yeah.
But unless you talk to somebody who can see the big picture, and that's what a lot of those military recruitment and placement firms offer, that I don't know where else you can get that from.
Yeah. Luke, I think that's a good point to a question you were asking earlier. And I think it goes back to what programs are there. And I'm not going to knock the Army today, because it's been almost a decade for me since I went through it. But I don't remember then, in the whole transition process while on active duty, that you're being introduced to recruiting firms. And Luke, you owning a recruiting firm, like,
that's right,
just makes sense, because there's so much value there. Because where is their interest? Their interest is in you. And they know the clients that they have that they might be able to place you with or get you interviews with. So there's going to be a lot more attention. And I couldn't agree with that more. So if there was one thing, if there's any Army people listening, military people listening, and you have authority, include local recruiting firms or even national firms. They probably have reps in your area in your transition program. Start making those introductions for service members, because it's going to be a huge help.
Absolutely.
I'm going to throw something else in here, and it's something we're dealing with in the reserve a lot, is we can't maintain and retain as many people as we would like to. And so we're always talking about recruiting and retention. So as we here are talking about recruiting and retention on the civilian workforce, one of the things that we need to do as military service members is do a better job of placing people in the civilian market, because it leaves military members with a good taste in their mouth when they feel like their leadership cared about them as a whole human. I care about Specialist Smith, but I also care about Ryan Smith. Like, if I'm helping them transition comfortably, they are the best recruiting tool. They're going to tell their kids, their grandkids, their friends about their time in the Army and how people really cared about them. And that's how you get a stronger Army and a stronger workforce, or military and workforce.
That's right.
Yes, for sure.
That's right. Absolutely. I'm going to plug Phenom for a minute, since they're partnering with us on this. But, you know, that's one of the things we're doing at Phenom, is helping companies like Baylor Scott and White on the healthcare side, like BAE Systems, like Southwest Airlines. what we help them do is set up on their career site a content page that's specifically towards, veterans, military members, their spouses. And on there, our technology, they can actually put in their MOS code. So veterans, you can put in what your MOS code is, and it will automatically translate the skills that you have and connect it to the job descriptions that you're already a fit for. So this makes it a little bit easier, for both sides to do this. If you're a client of Phenom or if you're looking to be one, this is something we actually include for free in everything that we do. So you don't have to pay extra for it. It is the right thing to do. But to drive this home for companies out there and talent acquisition folks, and take it from Lisa, what we're describing is not hard at all. It's almost like just having a plan is almost as important as just having the plan itself. Like even doing just a little bit, just showing that, hey, this is something we value as a company, and giving a little bit of training to your recruiters. And when I say a little bit, 30 minutes of sitting down on a Monday and saying, hey, this is what the company is going to do. These are great folks. Their skills translate really well, and I think you should go out there and try to hire them. That takes the nervousness away, the scariness away, and the results, I think, are going to be great. And you're getting some great members of the community. You're doing a right thing. They're plug and play. And you look at like joining a mission, like military folks, they finish every mission. There's no quit in them. You look at what we do on the business side, there's plenty of quit in all of us. So we could use more veterans around us on the business side.
Good points, Luke. Great points. Good stuff.
And that was my plug. But Lisa, you're doing an amazing thing out there on so many levels. You amaze me. When I look at you on Instagram, you post a lot of, I'm telling you, listeners, she's getting after it on Instagram. Like when I look at Lisa's Instagram post, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've squandered my life. I need to eat a salad. I can't lift any weights, but it's awesome to see. So we're delighted. You're always welcome here on the Bo and Luke Show.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
of course.
Bo,
closing thoughts before we give Lisa a chance to plug everything. I want to hear about the Talent War Group, how people can get a hold of you, how they can challenge you to lifting contests, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So I just want to say, we try to have as much fun on the show as possible and laugh and so forth. But this is a super serious topic, near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure to Lisa's heart, and Luke, to yours. We've had plenty of guests from the military community who've separated and gone on to do other things, who've shared their own challenges in the transition. And just wanted to share, Luke mentioned it earlier, when we had Colonel Cohen on the program, who retired 13, 14 years ago, and is totally dedicated today to mental health and mental fitness for service members transitioning, we learned that it's those first 12 months from the time a person transitions, those 12 months right afterward, that elevates the probability for suicide if it's not going well for them, because there's just so many things that can go wrong. And a lot of that is because they just don't have the information. They don't have someone to grab onto to mentor them. They haven't found something like Team Red, White, and Blue to find other purpose in the community for them to put their focus on, that they no longer have with all their fellow soldiers all around them all the time. So we take this topic very seriously, and we hope through this series with Phenom people that we're able to share some insights with our guests like Lisa, and actually help improve the transition process. And I will put it out there for us, Luke. Anybody listening, you can contact us. You can contact us through our website, theboandlukeshow.com. And if you're just looking for a resource in your local community, we will help you find that resource and plug you with an actual person, so that you can start that conversation, because there's no reason today to go through transition by yourself or think that you can't get help. And I'm talking free help. You don't have to pay for it. It's not stuff that people are out there charging you for and taking advantage of you. I'm talking people committed to helping you through the process so you can go on to that next chapter of your life. So that's my plug, Luke.
Amen to that, Bo. Lisa, tell people how they can get a hold of you, contact you at the Talent War Group, and just receive some of this great Lisa Jaster energy.
So I'm really blessed that Talent War Group actually found me. The Talent War, it's an excellent book written by George Randall and Mike Sorelli, who, along with Carly Walden, started a talent management organization. We do everything from coming into your company and trying to help build up your leadership teams, to keynote speaking events, to recruiting and placement on both the business side as well as the individual side. We do try to work with your middle to upper level management in your medium to slightly larger companies. But we work with a whole sort of people, and every single one of us is extremely accessible. I get contacted a lot on LinkedIn, but as you said, I try to post every day on Instagram, and I post my failures as well. The other day, all I wrote on there was everybody feels like a failure sometimes. And that was me sitting there going, I don't know if I'm going to make it through the day without bursting out in tears. I was just frustrated. And because people seem to think that, hey, I've got a cool resume, I've had some success, got to be a guest of the wife of the president at the State of the Union. Wow, everything's going great. No, it's not. We fight with our kids, we fight with our husbands, we're real people. So I am on Instagram, and I think it's Lisa A. Jaster as my Instagram. I've got Delete the Adjective Twitter and Facebook accounts. The biggest thing I have going for me right now, though, is I've actually taken my 6 months at a 9-week school. Yes, I said that correctly. It took me 6 months to finish a 9-week school. I was one of the first females to walk through the exact same gates and the exact same trails as my father had.
Wow.
Over 47 years earlier. And it was pretty awesome to be able to do that and to be one of the firsts, but I thought it was important to capture just that experience. It isn't the life of Lisa Jaster. It's, the book is going to be called Delete the Adjective. It's coming out later this year. I'm in final edits. But the idea is I mostly want people, the men, to read it, to know that my story is the same as yours. And it leads into a lot of the discussion we have about recruiting and retaining people. You have to look at the attributes they're bringing to the fight, not what buckets they fit in. And being a part of Talent War Group is what drove me to finally send my manuscript to an editor and move forward with that. So that's my big plug there, is Delete the Adjective. It's coming out. I don't know when, but I will let you know so you can help me plug it, so I'm not the only one, or so my mom isn't the only one buying a copy of it.
Oh, we'll have you back on for sure. I'm buying a copy.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Lisa. Bo, and thanks to both of you for your sacrifice, and I've realized, just as anyone else, joining the military is like one of the big regrets that I have in life. I wish I would have done it, but now hopefully I can repay that later on in life, because it's never too late to start. So thank you both for your sacrifice. And I think we're doing some great things here. So thank you so much, Bo and Luke Nation. That's a wrap.